that easy, that simple. We're just saying thanks for listening to News Talk 970 WDAY.
970 WDAY AM and 93.1 FM, Fargo-Moorhead.
And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus here on WDAY and Acres TV. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our wonderful and talented Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. Good afternoon, Bridgette.
Howdy, Dean.
Cold start to the day, isn't it? Whew.
I think we can say brisk. How's that?
Brisk that's good. We will be talking about not only our weather here coming up over the next few days, but nationally as a whole. Boy, this cold weather is blasting all the way down to the Gulf Coast. For us, we're at 32 degrees. That's it with the wind chill right now. Stuck in the 20s. So that winter jacket definitely in need today. It doesn't look bad inside looking out, but wow, you step out in that and it's a slap in the face. It does not feel like the third week here in October. But it feels more like mid-late November out there. It's a chilly one, and but again, dry weather continues, which is again good news for harvest.
And you keep telling me we are in fact going to get to a little bit of a warm up again. So let's not think all is lost at this point. That's
right. Yeah, as we head throughout this upcoming week, we'll gradually see temperatures warm up. We'll be in the 60s by Thursday. So all in all, this cold snap has lasted. It'll be, before it's said and done here, about a week. And again, this is part of our LRC cycle. So expect these cold snaps. And again, this could be record setting for this early in the season as we head into tomorrow morning. And if that's the case, boy, when this same pattern recycles back through later this winter, expect the possibility of maybe some more record-setting cold, and that's not what I want to hear. But the good news is it's followed, as you can see, by a warm-up. So right. we can kind of look forward to, is this roller coaster ride going to continue all winter long? Let's hope the dry weather doesn't, because we're going on week 2 now in the LRC cycle. We haven't had much precip out of it. So that's a pretty dry start to the cycle. And again, that will repeat itself throughout this upcoming winter. Each start of the cycle should be relatively dry for the first couple of weeks. Now we'll see what happens next week, as we are starting to see signs of a pattern change, which will be bringing some more precip. Hopefully, fingers crossed, this hasn't panned out yet, but we're getting signs that at least temporarily we'll see a return to some stormier conditions with whether that be rain or snow. We'll wait and see.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, watching those patterns closely, I know folks are just still plugging away through harvest. Things are moving along very quickly. I think that we saw a lot of soybeans wrapping up late last week, maybe Saturday. I even saw some folks who decided yesterday it was best to just park the combines, have a little day of rest. That's not all bad.
Hey, you got to have some rest in there, no doubt about it. How are the yields been? How have they been? I've heard nothing but good news. At least in our neck of the woods, in the northern plains, I've heard they've been pretty good, at least compared to last year, obviously. But have they been above normal?
Yeah, and I think I don't know if I can say above normal, but I can say average to slightly above. Folks are pretty happy overall. Now, it's very, very much field dependent. Not every field is great,
right? Because
you may have gotten a little more rain here and not as much a couple miles away. But in general, folks are okay with what their yield looks like right now.
That's good news. That's great news. Well, we'll talk more about our weather, how it's going to warm up, and what we were talking about next week. We could turn into a stormier pattern. We'll talk about that and other ag topics coming up here right after ABC News. Stay with us.
From ABC News, I'm Richard Cantu. The pandemic deep into its third year. Health officials warn of the possibility of another COVID surge. New Omicron subvariants and slow penetration of new vaccines in the public could create a new wave of infections. Dr. John Brownstein is an ABC News contributor.
These are a whole new set of BA5 and BA4 subvariants, and we're seeing them surge in other parts of the globe, which have translated to hospitalizations, We're now seeing them, emerge in the U.S., but we just don't know what exactly it will mean, and especially what it will mean for what we care about most, which is protecting our hospitals, reducing severe illness.
The administration extended the COVID public health emergency through January 11th. Congressional Republicans demanding an end to the emergency. Ukraine says Russian suicide drones hit 4 locations in Kyiv. The mayor says a hit on a non-residential building started a fire and a number of apartment blocks were damaged. No word right now on casualties. Separately, Russian forces under attack in their own country.
A shooting at a Russian military training ground as Putin faces growing discontent over his mass mobilization for the war in Ukraine. 2 gunmen opening fire in the Belgorod region, killing 11 volunteer soldiers and injuring 15 more as they prepared to deploy to Ukraine. The Kremlin calling it a terrorist attack.
ABC's Britt Clennett. Wesley Brownlee busted in Stockton, California. He is suspected in the gunshot murders of 6 men and wounding of a woman going back to July.
The suspect was allegedly terrorizing this Northern California community of Stockton as well as Oakland. Now, police say that there was no rhyme or reason to how he was picking his victims. He was targeting allegedly his victims at random at late night and early morning. And so they are breathing a sigh of relief now as police continue their investigation.
ABC's Mona Kosar Abdi. You're listening to ABC News.
Attention all business owners who rent or lease space, including storage space. Stop wasting your money paying someone else for your space. You can now save a ton of money and own your own building with the incredible sale prices from General Steel. That's right, start saving money every month on renting space from others. Just call 888-74-STEEL to see how General Steel can help you save money. Our 50-year structural warranty buildings are custom designed for your needs and save you a ton of money. Call 888-74-STEEL.
Take it from a successful entrepreneur. If you need to expand or start a new business, you need General Steel.
Great team and the competitive pricing is the reason I went with General Steel.
Call 888-74-STEEL now, and you can get any of our popular quick construction structures, including a 40 by 60 foot building or a 50 by 100 clear span building, fast and easy. Call 888-74-STEEL. That's 888-747-8335. 888-74-STEEL.
Do you run diesel? ATI Fargo has bulletproofing on your 6.0 vehicles. Looking to get fleet work done? ATI Fargo has you covered. They have fuel system disaster prevention kits for your 6.7 Power Strokes. ATI Fargo can get your Cummins head studded and never think of it again. Do you own a business and need quick turnaround on repairs? Call ATI Fargo. Stop in at 2764 44th Avenue North in Fargo. Running diesel? Check out ATI Fargo and give them a call at 218-639-5017.
I'm former State Senator Curtis Olofsson. I'm a lifelong farmer and rancher and business owner and a national spokesman for addressing our nation's debt. I served in the State Senate from 2006 to 2012, and I'm running to return to the Senate in the new District 10 in Fargo to bring my experience to bear for this new district. Together, we will address the ever-increasing rate of crime, find solutions to our child care crisis, and recruit and retain great teachers for our schools. Vote for experience. Vote for Curtis Olofsson on November 8th.
Paid for by District 10 Republicans. Curtis Olofsson Chair.
And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Again, thank you for joining us today, whether it be on WDAY radio or online, either on Acres TV or streaming on our social media platforms. And if you've been wondering, hey, where's meteorologist extraordinaire Justin Storm? Well, he had his first son. And if you're watching us, if you're streaming, watching us online, we've got a picture. He's a beautiful little boy. Sterling is the name he gave him, and he is just adorable. We're showing his picture here in studio, and yeah, if you're watching online, he's just such a cutie. So Justin will be out through early next week, and then we will have him back here in studio as he takes care of his newborn. And you know, first-time dad, you want to give him as much time with his little one as he possibly can, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll get a chance to visit with Justin and hear how things are going very, very soon. But in the meantime, it's you and me, pal. So
it is. And we're going to touch on a topic later. I don't want to touch on it quite yet, but we're going to tease people about it. and invite you to call in and weigh in on this, because this just, this irks me to no end. So overseas, across the pond there, kids in the UK, and I'll call them kids, protesters, whatever you want to call them.
Young adults, shall we?
I don't even know if I'd use the term adults, but I guess you could. They are going into supermarkets and going into the milk aisle and dumping out all the milk in protest of dairy farms over there. I mean, it is just absolutely, to me, insane. There's other ways to protest. You know, I'm sure there's some people in need over there, whether it be homeless or just that could use that milk. I mean, I'm sorry. That's just. And briefly, what are they protesting? I guess we'll hit it now. Forget it. We'll hit it. We'll go into it now.
We will, because I have all sorts of things from an ag background that I think we want to make sure we hit on. But this is being an organized attack. And when I say organized attack, when we've talked about agro-terrorism, and we mentioned that last week, this is something that's affecting consumers' lives because of it. So we'll get to that after a bit. But Dean, this local weather situation, you were going to mention how long we're going to be sitting around in the cooler temperatures, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we are going to be in this cooler regime here for another couple of days, today and tomorrow. Now, tonight we could be setting record cold temperatures. We're calling for a low of about 12 to 15. Our record low is 10. That was set back in 1972. So, and we're not the only ones. I mean, from here in the Northern Plains through Minneapolis, Omaha, Sioux City, Kansas City, all the way down to the Gulf Coast, could be seeing record-setting temperatures with this cold air mass and sliding in from Canada. So this means business across much of the northern, central, even southern tier of the United States. Only areas in the Rockies and to the West Coast are really escaping this cold punch. But the good news is we do warm up. We'll start to see our flow come in directly off the Pacific as we head towards late in the week, and that will warm us up into the 60s. By next weekend, I wouldn't be surprised to see a few local 70s around in the Northern Plains. So we go from one extreme to the other, and that seems to be kind of the pattern that's setting up here with the LRC over the last week to going on 2 weeks here. So again, we'll see exactly how that pans out in terms of what this next part of the cycle of this LRC cycle, how this sets up when this flow comes in off the Pacific. Is it going to allow because there's a whole train of storms out in the Pacific. Is it going to allow these to come in full force, or will they kind of break up as they move in? So it'll be interesting to see here what we have kind of in store over the next 2 weeks are going to be really interesting around here, because with that flow off the Pacific, if we don't get some moisture out of any of those storms, we might be in some big trouble as we head throughout the rest of the winter and into next year. Again, way too early to sound the alarm, because I really do think we are going to see some much needed precip by later next week and probably through the first part of November.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. This is good news, kind of.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, kind of. It depends which way you look at it, right?
All right. Excellent. All right. So that's our catch up on the local weather for the moment, which is awesome. I want to make sure to highlight the fact that next week is National FFA Convention. So I just want to make sure folks are well aware of that and say a big howdy to all of those students who are going on down to Indianapolis, Indiana to compete. We're very excited to hear your results when you get back. So that'll be awesome. Great for them.
Great for them. And we're going to take another short break here. When we come back, again, we're going to hit on this topic that we just touched on, where these protesters across the pond are protesting dairy farms and actually going into these supermarkets and dumping out milk. What would you do if that happened here? What if this trend comes across the pond here and this starts happening in our neck of the woods? What would you do? Weigh in on this. 701-293-9000. That's 701-293-9000. We'll talk more about that and more ag topics right after the break. Stay with us.
Hi, my name is Rohith, and I'm a junior at Fargo South. I moved here with my parents at an early age, and I plan to study civil engineering in college. The reason I'm so hopeful about my future is Legacy Children's Foundation. I want to thank the amazing donors who are complete strangers to me. I am amazed by their generosity. Because of them, Legacy Youth receives resources and positive relationships to become educated leaders. Find out more at legacychildrensfoundation.com.
Attention North Dakota veterans. Did you know there is free transportation provided to veterans for medical appointments? This service is at no cost to you and available in several highly rural counties throughout the state. Contact your county veteran service officer for further information. North Dakota Veterans Affairs, proudly serving veterans from around the state with additional resources.
This message is sponsored by the Department of Veteran Affairs and aired in cooperation by the North Dakota Broadcasters Association and this station.
Think pink and help make a difference, because during Pucklich and Valley City's Why Pink event, we're donating $100 for every vehicle sold and $10 for every service repair order. Help us reach our goal of $10,000 donated to the JRMC Cancer Center and Sanford Roger Maris Cancer Center. So think pink and help make a difference as we raise $10,000 during our Why Pink event at Pucklich Chevrolet Buick GMC in Valley City.
Get what you want and pay over time when you use your Lowe's Advantage Card. Now through October 26, 2022. Ask for 0% APR with 36 fixed monthly payments on a product installation or appliance purchase of $1,000 or more. Shop for the appliances you want in-store or online. Or go to the store nearest you for installation. Now at Lowe's. Offer subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. See store at Lowe's.com for details. U.S. only.
Yeah, I'm so stressed. Our business is growing. We've got people all over now.
Ooma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending Ooma and their all-in-one phone, video, and collaboration solution.
Ooma?
Yep. Switching to Ooma is a cinch. Just $24.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Now you're feeling it. Visit Ooma.com. That's OOMA.com to learn more. Ooma. Smart communications for the smarter business.
Research shows listeners prefer a personalized experience. So to help you remember, Liberty Mutual customizes your home insurance. We personalized this ad for Amber, who really misses boy bands from the 90s.
Hey girl, I'm the cute one, here to tell you how Liberty Mutual customizes your home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
I'm the heartthrob. The only thing I love more than you is saving. And I'm the other boy in the band everyone forgot about.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
And welcome to WDAY Weather and Ag in Focus. I am so glad that you are joining us. And by us, I mean myself, Bridgette Readel. I'm the Ag Director, along with Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki. And as we mentioned earlier, our trusty sidekick, Justin Storm, our other meteorologist, he'll be back soon, but he's currently out celebrating the fact that they have a new baby at their house. So he maybe is also taking a nap.
I'm sure he said to me, he goes, "Oh, I never knew how important sleep was." I'm like, "Oh, it's just begun, buddy. Wait."
Yeah, people try to tell you, but there's no getting any extra in this time frame.
That's right.
Yeah. So Dean and I brought up the fact that there's a story, and this originally was brought up in, I think it was the New York Post, and I've seen it in a couple other different places as well. There are protesters who are concerned about the environment. At least they say that's their reasoning for it. And they are going into stores. Currently, this is happening a lot in the United Kingdom. And they are dumping milk on the ground and saying that this is the only way we're going to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture is by completely shutting down the dairy industry and going to a plant-based, I don't want to call it a milk because it's not really a milk, but just going to a plant-based drink. So my first thing is, Dean, I want to ask what you think about that before I load into this one.
Well, the FCC is going to prohibit me from saying what I really feel, but I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I'm going to sound like an old man. Where are these kids? And I'll call them kids. I'm sorry. We're their parents. I mean, are there, and there's other ways to protest, Like Jacob, our producer, said, he's like, these this milk could go to families in need, like that really need it. So I mean, you're really not proving anything outside of just being punks, basically. You know, I mean, and what if you confront that? I'd definitely be confronting them if I saw them doing this in stores here. And I'd love people to chime in on this.
Yeah,
701-293-9000. Again, 701-293-9000. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, there's protests and then there's just being punks. And, you know.
And so, okay, I'm going to go right to fact-based things.
Right.
And I am going to probably unload on you more than you wanted to hear.
I'm ready. Let it go.
Okay. So first of all, the big argument here is that the animal industry contributes to greenhouse gases. The entire U.S. agricultural sector, animals and equipment, only brings 11% of total greenhouse gas emissions to the count versus 27 from transportation. Hey, I'm looking at all of us driving cars and riding the bus. 25 from energy and 24 from business and industry. So we're the minor player. Of that, animal agriculture is even lesser of an emissions emitter, if you will. What really happens is you have militant organization by vegan organizations who want to push their agenda. They are doing it on younger and less informed folks. If we say we have to go to an entirely plant-based industry, we have to eliminate dairy and meat, how do you think we get those plants? We farm them. You know, when we use tractors and fertilizer in order to grow those items, in order to have your plant-based foods. So we're probably going to be going to the higher sector that has the emissions. Secondly, these protesters truly believe that animals are mistreated by their farmers. Okay, look, there's always bad players, right? There's always someone who probably does that. But in the overall scheme of things, dairy cattle are the most pampered animal that I have ever seen on a farm. I mean, Dean, you and I have talked about like water beds in the back of the barn for them, heated water beds. They are well taken care of. If we said, all right, we're no longer going to milk cows, great. You're just going to let the cows die of infection because cows need to be milked. And even when they have calves, their productivity is so high that even a calf can't completely take care of that productivity. So we'd be letting animals suffer in a way that I don't think we should. So that's just my start of my lecture. Where do you want to go from there?
Well, here's what, and I'm reading this article and I'm thinking, where are they getting this information from? They said that the article written by the New York Post, and I don't know if the New York Post quoted this or if this is from the protesters, saying that the dairy farms are putting out more emissions than BP, Shell, all of our gas and oil companies combined.
That is misinformation from the vegan organizations.
Okay, now then how do they get away with that? I'm sorry, that's just fake news.
If you'd like, Dean, you and I could start a blog and we can type anything up that we'd like, and no one said it had to be based on accuracy and science. As long as it's on the internet, it must be true.
But again, do some research. If you're going to protest, do some research. You know, I mean, dive into it. Don't just take your beliefs coming off the internet and whatnot. But I'd love to hear other people's opinions. 701-293-9000, 701-293-9000, or you can email us weather at flagfamily.com or ag@flagfamily.com, because it's some of this has just gone beyond.
Well, and also think of it this way. This is an attention getter. This is the new Tide Pod Challenge or Gatorade Challenge or whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. But someone got to get on camera on social media by doing that. Better on the other side of it, I've been part of a chocolate milk challenge in June, when June is Dairy Month, and I've had to slug my pint of chocolate milk in one sitting. I felt that was a much, much better use of milk at the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt about it. Now, I got an email over the weekend, and this is a good question. I didn't, and he was tying this into the Hurricane Ian that hit Florida.
Yes.
He said, and I couldn't give him a straight answer. I didn't know, so this is why I'm bringing it up to you. He said he's heard that when, let's say, semis that are hauling cattle and let's say it overturns, the semi overturns. He said, I heard that they have to put down all of those cattle because of the adrenaline that goes through the animal when this truck overturns. Is that true?
I would say we have a longer discussion ahead of us than just what you mentioned.
Okay.
So we are probably going to go to our ABC at the bottom of the hour. We'll listen to ABC News. When we come back, let's talk about that and some of the trucking regulations. I'm not a trucker myself. I do know a few of the of things that this discussion and email might be alluding to. Let's go through those, Dean, and answer that question for our listener. And we will do that right after the news. Be right back.
Fair Meadow Nursing Home is a 42-bed skilled nursing facility in Fertile, Minnesota. They pride themselves on the small-town, close-knit home environment feel they provide their residents. Now hiring for the following positions: CNAs, LPNs, RNs, PTAs, TMAs, and universal workers. Fair Meadow Nursing Home is committed to providing seniors a rich, meaningful, and dignified life, focusing on physical, social, spiritual, and emotional needs in order to provide the best life journey possible.
Save now on premium mattresses, pillows, bases, and linens at Accord Comfort Sleep Systems directly across from Olive Garden. Find the best mattress design and construction with our exclusive technologies such as our Accord Comfort Reflex Layer, ensuring proper spinal alignment. Our Thermodyne Climate Control fabric is perfect for the couple sleeping hot and cold. Buy today and take it home today, or free delivery in the FM metro area. Accord Comfort Sleep Systems. You're going to love sleeping with us.
How many times have you heard, I've got good news and I've got bad news? Which do you want to hear first?
Here's some good news, bad news wisdom. Bad news, time flies. Good news, you're the pilot.
Bad news, money doesn't grow on trees. Good news, money grows as you grow.
Bad news, the weather isn't always sunny. Good news, your attitude can be.
Bad news, your old windows are costing you money. Good news, we can fix that. I'm Jaden.
And I'm Andrew from the Window and Door Store in Fargo.
Whether you have one window or a whole house full of windows you should replace, we treat everyone the same.
We offer free, no obligation estimates, and we give everyone our lifetime installation guarantee.
Bad news, winter is coming again.
Good news, with new windows, you won't care as much.
Check us out, the Window and Door Store.
Go to www.thewdstore.com.
Today, health is the new wealth.
Kindness is the new cool.
So be cool.
Do you suffer from stiff, achy, chronic knee pain? Have you been told you have arthritis? Is knee pain keeping you from enjoying your favorite hobbies? If so, the next 60 seconds could change your life. Please listen carefully. If we find you're a candidate for our unique approach, we'll do a trial treatment, and day one, you will know without a doubt if we can help you. Pick up the phone right now and call 701-353-2230. And best of all, we may be able to reduce and even eliminate your knee pain without pills, shots, or surgery. But due to limited capacity, you must call now at 701-353-2230. Hurry, call now to find out if you qualify for our program that is changing lives and helping people save time, money, and agony. Call now at 701-353-2230. You have nothing to lose, so call right now.
The Fargo Forum endorsed my opponent, arguing we need him because he's a long-term politician, a member of Doug Burgum's Good Old Boys Club. They wrote that I have the skills to be your Secretary of State. They just want the establishment politician to win. Let's prove them wrong. I'm Jeffrey Powell, that's with 2 L's. I'm a career educator, and because I'm not a Republican, I won't get involved in the reindeer games in Bismarck. Before November 8, cast your vote for Jeffrey Powell for Secretary of State. Paid for by Jeffrey Powell for North Dakota, Eric Savanesant, Treasurer.
Bonnie and Friends and Brockmeyer Tile & Stone is giving away a $100 gas card. When you hear this, gasoline will be free, yeah. Gasoline. Be caller 7 to 701-293-9000 and get registered to win the free $100 gas card. That easy, that simple. We're just saying thanks for listening to News Talk 970 WDAY.
And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thank you again for joining us. Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki here, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. And Bridgette, before we went to break, we were talking about, I had an email come in over the weekend from a listener asking about, hey, when these trucks overturn on the freeway and they're loaded with cattle, do they have to put down all the cattle because of a adrenaline rush that's supposed to ruin the meat? So we had to go to break before we kind of dove into that more. What can you tell me about that?
Okay, so I'm going to do this off the top of my head. My goal here, though, is if I have said anything inaccurate, I would ask those who operate their own livestock trucking businesses or, have a bull rack or a cattle pot. And if I said something wrong, please let me know, because many of you go through the beef quality assurance testing to make sure you know what to do in those situations when there's an accident. So first and foremost, injured and maimed animals are put down so that they do not suffer. Can the meat be processed even after there's been an adrenaline rush to it? I think it can. Often people say, that changes the taste of meat, etc. Mm-hmm. But if you're taking, let's say you've got 5 animals and you're going to run them through a processing facility that's moving 800 head that day, likely you would not notice, right? It's not something that's toxic. If there was a slight difference in the taste of that meat, it would be blended in with everything else that's going on at the processing plant that day. Now, again, you don't have to shoot every animal. We're only going to put down those that are suffering or heavily injured. So oftentimes, if you have animals that are fine, they might just be a little dazed, you'll round them up, take them back out to pasture, let them kind of regain their wits and right. Maybe kind of get it back together there for a while before you take the next step in their journey, so to speak.
And he was kind of tying this in to Hurricane Ian. He said, listen, if there was, and we'll have somebody on next week from Farm Bureau down in Tampa, to talk about what Hurricane Ian has done to the agriculture industry down there. But same thing. I mean, if Hurricane Ian comes ashore there and there's a bunch of distressed, not injured, but distressed livestock with all can you imagine the adrenaline rush that they were going through when this all happened? Would it affect the meat? So I guess the answer is as long as they're not injured, no, it should be okay.
And if you're still out on pasture after the storm has passed, and of course your farmers and ranchers took every precaution possible to keep those animals safe and free of injury and low stress. So those animals are probably now back on pastures where it's safe as long as there's not debris, etc., and they're being well taken care of. Interesting to note, as we had a story late last week, Friday, that there is a dairy farm down that was in the path of Hurricane Ian. They lost over 250 head of dairy animals, and one of their great concerns now post-storm is tetanus, because just like a human, we're all mammals, cows are too, cattle are too, and you could see tetanus because of some of the flying debris and injury that could have occurred with some of those animals.
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes sense. So if you have anything you want to talk about, give us a call, whether it be weather or ag related, 701-293-9000. That's 701-293-9000, or you can, if you're shy, you can email us at ag@flagfamily.com or weather@flagfamily.com.
Well, if someone's feeling a little bit shy, I do want to bring up some good news things, and one of them is that the North Dakota Mill and Elevator is celebrating its 100th anniversary here in the state of North Dakota. This is a little bit unusual in the fact that our state owns its own mill and elevator system. That's not common. It started in 1922. It was born of the impetus that grain was being shipped down to Minneapolis, and a lot of farmers felt that they were not being given a fair price when their grain had to move that far. And so the mill and elevator got rolling. Their first 50 years were rough. It nearly burned down about 3 or 4 times. There was a lot of just general oversight from state government. They were passed between the Industrial Commission and the governor's office a couple times until things finally settled down. And their last 50 years, they've been making money. It's the largest automated mill in the country and the largest single site mill in the country. They have 156 employees, and they are really considered a financial success, especially because they move our high quality hard red spring wheat and durum through that mill. Most of the flour that they blend or that they mill is going to, within the the United States, but also the Caribbean. That's notable as well. And they go through about 140,000 bushels of wheat a day, and that adds value to 40 million bushels of spring wheat in Durham throughout a year. So there's a lot of good things that happen up there. They do nice work, and when you go to the local grocery stores and you want to buy local, you can buy bags of flour that say North Dakota Mill and Elevator on them, because that is right here in our state.
That's awesome. And you always like to keep it local if you can, no doubt about it.
So when I first got my job right out of college, I lived in Hillsboro, and my boss was very adamant about promoting North Dakota products, and we wanted to make sure that we fit in with our local communities when we lived there. And I remember people looking in my grocery cart, making sure that I was buying Dakota Mill flour, American Crystal sugar, Dakota Pasta Growers pasta out of Carrington, and I was happy to and still do buy those brands. But that's important when you live in small communities where those towns are prevalent.
Sure.
Those businesses are prevalent.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Now, let's touch on the rail strike, because
Sure.
the union did not. And I know we touched on this a little bit last week, that the union kind of turned down the offer that has been put on the table, and they're in a cooling off period now for roughly 30 days. Can the government, and I think we touched on this, I guess the government, could they step in and say, hey, no, you're working, or does a union override that? And what impact is this? Obviously, this is going to have an impact on anything that's shipped agriculture.
There's a couple of things. There are several unions that have to ratify this. There's more than just one. And so far, there have not been enough approvals to signify the ratification of this proposal. Now, that cooling off period will happen again in order to prevent a rail strike. Had one back in September that's issued by the White House. It's called the Presidential Exemption Board. Has to be able to do it. I think it was a PEB. And right now, there's still some argument about labor conditions, working conditions, etc. And I understand that it's not always an easy place and not always the best conditions in which folks have to work when they're working on the railroad. That's the reason we have songs about it, no doubt. Nonetheless, we also realize that if this rail strike happens, most of our current harvest won't be affected. It will be what happens as we put this harvest in at the elevators, and it's through the winter months as we try to move it. And so when I say it's not going to be affected right now, we're not going straight from a combine to an elevator and it's all getting shipped out. Some, not all. There'll be a lot that's got to be in storage, like we talked about the corn bunkers that are out there that are going to be tarped and held for the winter months, etc. But if this rail strike happens, if we really do shut down our railroad, where are we going to move product? We have a trucker shortage. We don't have enough drivers to go around. That truly puts us in a bind as a country. And agriculturally, we have equipment that's being manufactured, but we can't move it, because if we wouldn't have rail, it would be one thing. Secondly, we don't have tires all the time. There's a lot of new equipment that's sitting because they're waiting for tires that have to come by rail in order to put them on and move them again by rail. So there's some holdups happening right now.
Right. Well, let's hope they let's hope they get that ironed out. That's very important.
It is. And as we talk about all these different modes of transportation, I'm going to bring up something to do with electric cars, and that is the EPA is going to propose that electric vehicles be eligible for a renewable fuel credit in their upcoming proposal on biofuel blending mandates. This would really shake up changes in that mandate. For the first time, many things have moved the needle, so to speak, in 10 years, including the electric vehicle industry into these RFSs, as they're called, renewable fuels, would add another player into a really contentious policy that right now corn and oil don't always like each other in this situation. Expanding this policy would allow car makers like Tesla, they could benefit with this new type of credit in the industry. And they have to, basically when you're in this industry, you have to buy and trade a credit known as a RIN, and they would have the ability to do that. So it would really kind of change the dynamics of what we look at in our biofuels. Electric vehicles would qualify under the program's D3 mandate. There's a lot of questions that would have to be answered as of yet if it happens, and it would be a multi-year approach to getting it done. So something to see from the EPA if they do allow electric cars to be eligible for the renewable fuel credit. We'll see.
Interesting.
Yeah,
no doubt.
very.
And now I think, we've got a few more minutes left here before we take another break. I saw there was something on Hmong farming. The group that they made a land purchase. Is that local?
They did. Actually, it's down in southern Minnesota. This is a group of Hmong farmers who have purchased 155 acres of land in that neighborhood. Okay. This is the first major purchase of an ethnic group in that type of situation. So they're making farmland purchasing history for the Hmongs to do this. This is a farmers association that is doing it. The acreage will be off Highway 52 between St. Paul and Rochester. They've rented land before. Now this would be their own purchased ground. Traditionally, these folks raise a lot more vegetables, so that could also help us when we talk about buy local, because if they're producing vegetables that could make it into the Minneapolis market, that's another source instead of waiting for vegetables and so forth to come all the way from, say, California or some of our other coastal states.
Now, are they local residents, or is it just a group from overseas that has purchased it?
No, these are local residents.
Okay.
This is a Minnesota group.
That's great.
Yeah, so this will be some diversity in the purchasing of land down there, and hats off to them. Land's not currently cheap.
No.
So they've really stepped up to buy some product
and
or buy some land.
And local jobs, and so that just helps the local community as well.
Anytime we can help all of our communities, the better. I think that's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What else do we have on the ag front today?
Well, I think additionally, last week we had Alicia Nord Donnelly was on with us to talk about North Dakota Agri-Women. Mm-hmm. Just a reminder that next Friday, the 28th, is going to be their Harvest of Knowledge in Grand Forks, North Dakota. That's an event that if you would like to attend, please see the North Dakota Agri-Women's website page or go to their Facebook page. You can register for that. A friend of our show, Farm Fit Mama, Amanda Nigg from Sisseton, South Dakota, will be one of their keynote speakers. There'll be several there, and it's a great day to network and connect with other women in agribusiness and the farm from across the state of North Dakota, and then pick up all sorts of good new information for yourself. So that's one great place we can send folks to attend, and registration is still open.
And you said that's next Friday, correct?
It is next Friday, the 28th.
All right. Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Lots going on.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, we have to pay the bills here, so we're going to go to commercial break real quick here. But when we come back, we'll talk about national weather, how this cold snap is affecting other parts of the country. It's not just the northern plains. And we'll kind of take a look at the LRC a little bit, and we'll take a sneak peek into next week and what that might hold for not only the northern plains but other parts of the country. We'll talk about that and more when we come back.
Hi, my name is Justina, and I am a junior at Fargo North. I moved here with my parents at an early age, and I plan to study business in college. The reason that I'm so hopeful about my future is Legacy Children's Foundation. I want to thank the amazing donors who are complete strangers to me. I'm amazed by the generosity. Because of them, Legacy youth receive resources and positive relationships to become educated leaders. Find out more at legacychildrensfoundation.com.
Food, football, and fun in the fall. Tailgaters brings it all together with their all-you-can-eat lunch buffet from 11 to 2 weekdays or dinner and an ice-cold beverage after work. Tailgaters is the place. There's no better place to watch football on Saturday and Sunday. Each game day, get their never-frozen, fresh-made half-pound burgers with fries for just $10.99. Domestic pints and bottles just $3.75. And live music every Friday night at 7. This week, Sean Mitzel plays at Tailgaters, corner of Main and University, downtown Fargo.
You want to feel important. You want to be a part of something bigger, something that matters and can help change things. You want to feel like you belong. We know. We felt that way too. And that's why we did something about it. We aren't just Army National Guard soldiers. We are normal people just like you. And together, we can make a difference. Take on your legacy. Visit NationalGuard.com to find out more.
Sponsored by the North Dakota Army National Guard. Aired by the North Dakota Broadcasters Association and this station.
Do you run diesel? ATI Fargo has bulletproofing on your 6.0 vehicles. Looking to get fleet work done? ATI Fargo has you covered. They have fuel system disaster prevention kits for your 6.7 Power Strokes. ATI Fargo can get your Cummins head studded and never think of it again. Do you own a business and need quick turnaround on repairs? Call ATI Fargo. Stop in at 2764 44th Avenue North in Fargo. Running diesel? Check out ATI Fargo and give them a call at 218-639-5017.
Not a whole whole lot of fresh news to trade on Monday. You're listening to the American Ag Network. of Jesse Allen with this closing market update. Well, the commodity markets continue to trade headlines that cause money flow to ebb and flow. That was positive for the most part on Monday. Good bank earnings aiding the mood on Wall Street. A Russian drone strike on a sunflower oil storage facility at a port in Ukraine, raising risk for food shipments out of that country. Wheat prices led the way higher on that news overnight and held on to okay strength throughout the day, although we did see a bit of late profit taking. Same was seen in soybeans. Bean oil helping propel the soybean market, but then some late profit taking seen there. Corn prices getting the short end of the intermarket spreads throughout the day. They were pretty much held in negative territory for much of the session. U.S. dollar broke lower. That aided the livestock trade, especially lean hogs on the day Monday, where we saw triple-digit strength in that complex as we saw cattle modestly higher as well. Final numbers on Monday: December corn down 6 1/4, 683 1/2. March corn down 6 1/2, 689 3/4. November beans 1 1/2 higher, 1385 1/4. January unchanged at 1392 3/4. December bean meal down 10 cents a ton, 411. December bean oil up 154.6684. Chicago wheat December 1 1/4 higher, 861. March up 1 3/4, 878 3/4. KC wheat December down 1/4 penny at 952. Spring wheat for December, that was up 3/4, 955. March down 1/2 penny, 962 1/2. Lean hogs December up 270, 84.95. February up 255, 85.97. Feeder cattle October up 95, 174.75. November up 162, 176.40. Live cattle October up 92, 147.87. December up 142 at 149.20. That's closing markets on the American Ag Network. I'm Jesse Allen reporting.
Welcome, everyone. So glad that you are joining us today for WDAY Weather and Ag in Focus. I'm Bridgette, Readel Ag Director, along with Dean Wysocki, Chief Meteorologist. And Dean, we're going to talk about the national weather situation, but first things first, it is hunting season. Lots of folks in the neighborhood. As I traveled on Sunday, I saw a lot of out-of-state plates that folks are up here for bird hunting. And just a reminder, we have had positive cases for bird flu in both Dakotas, Minnesota already, because we're starting to see wildlife migratory patterns pick up again as we get towards fall. A reminder from the Game and Fish Department here in North Dakota that you're going to want to take some steps as hunters to reduce your potential risk of infection with bird flu. There is not a transmission to be concerned about to your hunting dogs if they are retrieving animals. Also, do not handle game that has been found dead or might be sick. Do not eat, drink, or smoke while you're cleaning game so you can avoid contamination of your eyes, mouth, nose, or open cuts, etc. Make sure you wash your hands, all your cleaning utensils, other surfaces with soap and hot water after you finish cleaning game. And NDSU Extension also lets us know that there is no evidence that anyone has contracted the virus from eating a fully cooked bird, either domestic or wild. And again, we do know protect your backyard flocks, as well as our commercial growers for poultry have really been keeping an eye on things and increasing their biosecurity levels so they do not have any infections run through their flocks, and we want our homeowners to do the same because wild birds are the highest form of transmission rate of that virus.
And there's no way for hunters to know if any game that they've shot has got the bird flu. There's just no way.
Likely not. I mean, if you see an animal that is sickly or injured, if you're going to euthanize that animal and you think it might be ill, then I would likely not want to process that animal. Right. That's my opinion as a hunter. I'm not a bird hunter. I'm a deer hunter, so I might handle it a little bit differently, just in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's shift here to national weather because the big story is the cold weather, the unseasonably cold weather. And again, this is part of the LRC cycle. So if it's unseasonably cold now, and when this cycles back probably a couple more times this winter, when the same pattern comes back around, imagine how cold it's going to be. And again, if we're talking record cold now, we could quite very well be talking about record cold each time this pattern cycles back through. The good news is we're going to bounce out of it quick. So, again, that roller coaster ride continues. But there's freeze warnings and freeze watches from Kansas through Missouri, Illinois, all the way out to Ohio and Pennsylvania, and then extending that south to the Gulf Coast from, let's say, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, the panhandle of Florida, all have freeze watches or some kind of advisory for freezing temperatures. Where it's the coldest in the UP of Michigan, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, areas around Marquette under winter storm warnings with 8 to 12 inches of snow expected there. Great news for snowmobilers up in the UP of Michigan. Nice little snowpack up there. A lot of that's going to melt away, though, with warmer temperatures coming in later this week. But we're kind of looking at one of the main patterns here to start off the LRC is a big ridge on the western tier of the U.S. and a big trough in the east. We're kind of caught in the middle with a cold northwest flow. That's what we've seen with some transitioning in between the both air masses. Now, that big ridge out west is going to break down. That's good news because what that does is starts to bring storm systems into the west coast and allows snow in the higher elevations, which we desperately need. It does allow moisture in the form of rain as well, and these storm systems come parading into the west coast. Now, how much strength will they have? What we want is a little buckle in the jet stream, not just a straight flow off the Pacific, because as that happens, a lot of the moisture is lost over the Rockies. And then by the time it gets east of the Rockies, we're not left with much. Now, we're getting some signs that we might get a pretty big trough developing out in the western tier of the U.S. Question is, how strong will that be? That will transition into storm systems rolling into the northern and central plains by late next week and into the end of the month, early November. If that does pan out, that would be one of the stormier parts of the LRC cycle. That's where we need our precip, is when the stormy part of the LRC cycle really starts to set up. How long will it be? It probably won't be more than a week, the way it looks right now, before we transition back into that big ridge out west and the trough east. That looks to be one of the main features of the LRC cycle for this season. We'll see. This is going to be an important next 2 to 3 weeks here on exactly what happens here with the weather. But we're starting to see signs of more stormier conditions that will be coming into the west coast. It'll be interesting to see what pans out on the models on how they exactly handle this, because our American model is indicating the first snow of the season by the end of the month here in the Dakotas. So, again, that could be out in the western part of the state. It could be over the central and east. Again, it's way up in the air. It's off, a good 10 days out here. But we're starting to see signs of that, and that's good. That's better than this dry northwest flow that we continue to have.
And it might be just a small amount of snow, right? We're not saying this is going to be a 6-inch dump and they're going to stay all the way through the spring season, right? That we don't know that for sure yet.
Crickets chirping. I mean, anything we get would not, more than likely, not stick around very long. I mean, end of October, usually you melt that off. But we're seeing signs of colder weather returning in November, and after we do our little warm-up dance here later this week and into early next week. But at least we're seeing something on our models that are signifying, all right, at least we're having the chance of precip here.
Sure.
Because, like I said, you go 2 weeks into the LRC cycle with dry weather. Okay, if it's a 50-day cycle and you're only 14 days into the cycle and you're dry off the first 14, you can handle that. But what if it's a shorter cycle length this year? What if it's a 30-day cycle and the first 15 are dry, and even if the next 15 are wet, they're not that wet? I mean, that will play a big part in what the outcome is for the winter and into the spring and summer of next year. So,
well, you brought up dry weather, and this may sound a little odd, but we don't use a lot of anhydrous ammonia in the Red River Valley. We do in some places, but specifically as we move west into North Dakota, we see more of that used as a primary nitrogen source for corn and wheat. And the I-states use a lot more, as they call it, gas down there. They use the anhydrous ammonia. Well, with the dry conditions that we have, when you apply ammonia, you're literally knifing into the ground with chisel points. Because the ground is so dry, it's not sealing back up over the top. And so that anhydrous ammonia that you are spending the money to apply to the ground because you want it to seal in and stay there to be used, it's dissipating because the furrow stays open. And so that's going to be a little bit of a problem for some folks is if you wanted to go out to apply your anhydrous, and right now you can't because there's not a good way for it to stay trapped in the soil like it's supposed to. So something to think about.
Yeah, and if we don't get that snowpack and we get the extreme cold, that's not going to help. I mean,
not really.
Yeah, and that I think that's one thing that looks to be a pretty sure bet is this is going to be a colder than normal winter here in the northern plains. No way around. I don't see that changing.
Okay.
The LRC cycling method of forecasting, that will tell us how much snow we get and how intense and long the cold will last as well. So we'll see how it pans out over the next couple of weeks. That'll be very interesting. But that's going to do it. We're about out of time for today. We want to thank you for joining us here on Weather and Ag in Focus. For Bridgette and myself, make sure to tune in tomorrow. Right now, it's going to be time for the Jay Thomas Show.
970 WDAY AM and 93.1 FM. Fargo.